I lost my wife suddenly, and overnight I became the only parent to our 3 children. I didn't know if I could do it, but I promised myself I'd keep our family together, no matter what. Here's how I survived the darkest days of my life. They say life can change in a single moment, in a blink. For Mark, it wasn't just a moment. It was the day the world crumbled beneath his feet. The day his wife died. The day he became the sole guardian of 3 children, with nothing but raw love and endless determination to keep their family alive. I still remember the day she left us, clear as if it was yesterday. The sky was an angry gray, clouds rolling heavy like the weight in my chest. We had just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary a week before. Anna was the heart of our home, the laughter in our halls, the warmth in the coldest nights. And suddenly, she was gone, taken by a sudden illness no one saw coming. That morning, the hospital called me. My hand was shaking before I even picked up the phone. The voice on the other end was calm but distant, delivering the news like a cold wave washing over me. I stood frozen, my mind blank, my world shattered. How do you tell 3 children their mother won't ever come home? How do you promise them everything will be okay when inside you're breaking? My eldest, Sophia, was just 12, sharp as a tack, but fragile in ways I had never seen before. She tried to be strong, but I caught her crying alone in her room, clutching her mother's favorite scarf. Then came Luca, 9, the wild spirit who never stopped asking questions, his eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. And little Mila, only 5, too young to understand, but old enough to feel the absence in the quiet moments. The house, once full of chatter and comfort, turned eerily silent. The walls echoed with memories, and every corner reminded us of Anna. I knew I had to be everything for my children, mother and father, protector and guide. But I was scared. Scared I'd fail them. Scared I wasn't strong enough. The first few nights were the hardest. Mila would wake up screaming, calling for her mother. Sophia refused to eat, and Luca wouldn't stop crying. I spent hours just holding them, whispering promises I hoped I could keep. I remember sitting on the floor of their bedroom, my back against the cold wall, tears streaming down my face as I prayed for strength. No one prepared me for this. No book, no advice could teach me how to be a single parent overnight. I had to learn on the fly, changing diapers, helping with homework, calming fears that sometimes kept us awake until dawn. I worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, sacrificing sleep and rest. Every morning, I looked in the mirror and told myself, for them, I will be strong. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Slowly, we found a new rhythm. The house wasn't the same without Anna, but we found small moments of joy again. Sophia started smiling more, Luca's laughter returned, and Mila began to sleep through the night. I held on to every tiny victory like a lifeline. Friends and family try to help, but grief is a lonely road. Many expected me to break, to collapse under the weight. But I didn't. I couldn't. I had 3 beautiful souls depending on me. So I chose love. I chose resilience. I chose family. Raising 3 kids alone changed me in ways I never imagined. It forced me to grow up fast, to put aside my own pain, and become a man worthy of my children's trust. And through the darkest nights, I discovered a strength I didn't know I had. This is the story of how I kept my family together after losing the most important person in our lives. How a broken man found hope and courage to be the father his children needed. And how, even in the face of unimaginable loss, love can light the way. The months following Anna's death were a blur, a chaotic mix of grief, exhaustion, and endless responsibility. I quickly realized that grief doesn't just hit you once. It crashes over you in waves, sometimes so strong it nearly drowns you. And with 3 children depending on me, I had no choice but to swim through it. My days began before dawn and ended long after the stars appeared in the night sky. The house demanded constant care, meals, laundry, homework, school runs, all while I tried to hold down a full-time job. The fatigue was crushing, but the idea of giving up was not an option. At work, I was Mark the single dad. Everyone knew my story. Some offered help, others expressed sympathy, but most simply expected me to handle it. I could feel the unspoken question in their eyes. How is he managing? Honestly, some days I barely managed to keep my head above water. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, the silence deafening. I ran my hands through my hair and stared at the flickering candle on the table, a small light that reminded me of Anna. I wanted to call someone, anyone, just to say how lost I felt. But I didn't. I reminded myself I had to be strong. But being strong didn't mean I was invincible. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, haunted by memories. Anna's laugh, her touch, the way she knew exactly what to say when one of the kids was upset. I wondered if I could ever be enough for them. Could I fill a void so vast? The children felt the strain, too. Sophia, always the eldest, suddenly became more responsible than a child should be. She helped Luca with his homework and tried to comfort Mila when she cried. One afternoon, I found her silently wiping away tears behind her school books. When I asked what was wrong, she said, "I miss Mom. And I'm scared, Dad. What if you can't take care of us forever?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She was scared, and maybe I was too, but I couldn't show it. Not then. I hugged her tight and told her, "I'm here. We're going to be okay. Together." Luca, my wild boy, expressed his grief differently. He acted out at school, sometimes getting into trouble. His teachers called me more than once. I could see the confusion and frustration in his eyes. He didn't understand why Mom wasn't there anymore, why life suddenly felt so unfair. I started spending more time with him after work, shooting hoops in the park, talking about anything and everything. Slowly, I saw his smile return, even if just a little. Mila, the youngest, had the hardest time grasping what had happened. She would ask questions I struggled to answer. "Where's Mommy? Why doesn't she come to my birthday?" I learned to be honest with her in the simplest way possible. Mommy is in a place where she can watch over us, and she loves you very much. Some nights, she would fall asleep clutching the stuffed bunny Anna gave her, whispering, "Mommy loves me." Despite the exhaustion, I tried to create moments of normalcy. We ate dinner together every night, read stories before bed, and found ways to laugh, even if it felt forced at times. Those moments became our lifelines. Still, the loneliness was overwhelming. Friends drifted away, unsure how to help. Family lived far, and I didn't want to burden them. I felt isolated, trapped in a world where I had to be everything. The pressure sometimes felt like a weight crushing my chest. One day, Sophia surprised me. She said, "Dad, I think we should do something special for Mom, something that keeps her memory alive." Her idea was simple, a photo album filled with pictures and memories. I loved it. We spent weekends gathering photos, writing notes, and sharing stories. It became a project that brought us closer. Through this journey, I learned something profound. Grief isn't just about loss. It's about learning to live with that loss day by day. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying. But it's also a reminder of love, resilience, and hope. I realized that my strength wasn't just in keeping everything together. It was in allowing myself to feel, to be vulnerable, and to lean on my children as much as they leaned on me. Together, we were building something new, a family shaped by love and loss, courage and hope. The road ahead was uncertain. There were no guarantees, no easy answers. But I was determined. Determined to be the father they needed. Determined to keep Anna's memory alive. Determined to show my children that even in the darkest storms, there's light. And so, we moved forward, step by step, day by day, holding on to each other, forging a future none of us could have imagined. This was our story, our fight, our love. The first 2 years without Anna were filled with lessons I never expected to learn. I learned how to fix a leaky faucet, how to braid Mila's hair, how to make pancakes that Sophia actually liked, and how to comfort Luca when the world seemed too cruel for a 9-year-old. But the toughest lessons weren't in daily chores. They were in the moments when life pushed us to the edge, testing every ounce of our resilience. One such test came unexpectedly. It was the winter after Anna's death, and the bitter cold seemed to seep into our very bones. The kids had started school again, and I was juggling 2 jobs just to keep the bills paid. I was exhausted but kept pushing because I knew they needed stability. But fate had other plans. One evening, I came home to find Sophia sitting on the stairs, her face pale and eyes red from crying. Luca was unusually quiet, clutching his backpack as if it was a shield, and Mila was asleep, unaware of the tension. I sat down beside Sophia, and she whispered, "Dad, they're being mean to me at school. They say things about Mom, about us." My heart clenched so hard I thought it might stop. School had been a battleground. Sophia was one of the smartest kids in her class, but that made her a target. Kids could be cruel, especially when someone was different or hurting. She told me about the whispers, the snide comments, the lonely lunches. They asked if she was an orphan, called her half a family. The words stabbed deeper than any physical wound. I felt helpless. I wanted to fight their battles for them, but I couldn't always be there. Instead, I told Sophia what I hoped would help. "You are strong. You are brave. And no one can take away the love that binds us." She nodded, but I saw the pain linger. Luca faced his own battles. At school, his anger flared in ways I hadn't seen before. Teachers called me several times about his temper tantrums and fights. It broke my heart to know he was struggling so much. One afternoon, after a particularly tough day, Luca slammed the front door, stormed into his room, and refused to talk to anyone. I sat outside his door, waiting until finally he spoke in a small voice. "I hate everything. I hate that Mom's gone. I hate that school's mean. I hate that you're always tired." It was a floodgate of raw emotion. I told him, "I hate it too, Luca, but we have to hold on for each other." The pressure of being the sole parent, the breadwinner, the comforter, it weighed heavily. Sleep became a luxury. Sometimes I found myself nodding off at the kitchen table, exhausted beyond measure. But every morning, I woke up determined to be better than the day before. And then there was the guilt. The crushing guilt that maybe I wasn't doing enough, that I was failing Anna, that I couldn't protect my children from pain. I wrestled with it every day. One particular night, everything came to a head. It was Mila's 5th birthday. I wanted to be perfect, a small party with balloons, cake, and laughter. I stayed up late the night before, baking and decorating, trying to create a little magic. But as the party started, the weight of everything I'd been carrying caught up with me. Mila was excited, but Sophia and Luca were distant. I felt invisible, like a shadow in my own family. The noise and chaos overwhelmed me, and I suddenly broke down in the kitchen, tears streaming freely. Sophia found me there. She came over quietly and hugged me, whispering, "It's okay, Dad. We're all tired." In that moment, the walls I had built to stay strong crumbled. We cried together, a family bound not just by love, but by shared pain and vulnerability. From that day on, I learned the importance of asking for help. I reached out to friends, joined a support group for widowers, and started therapy. It wasn't easy admitting I needed help, but it was necessary. The kids noticed the change too. We began having honest talks about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes. It brought us closer. Through all the struggles, one thing remained true. Our love for Anna was a guiding light. It kept us anchored when the storms threatened to tear us apart. And slowly, amid the hardship, we found healing. We were no longer just surviving. We were beginning to live again. The journey through grief had changed us, me and my children. We had survived the worst storm of our lives, but the question remained, how do we move forward when the past still weighs heavy on our hearts? How do we find joy when sorrow still lingers in the shadows? I realized the answer lay not in forgetting Anna, but in honoring her memory by living fully, for ourselves and for her. It was time to rebuild, not just the house we lived in, but the life we were meant to live. I began by creating new traditions, ones that included Anna, but also allowed us to grow. Every Sunday, we would cook her favorite meals together. Spaghetti bolognese, the one dish she had perfected. We'd play her favorite music and share stories about her. Sometimes, we'd laugh until our sides hurt. Other times, we'd cry. But always, we were together. Sophia blossomed during this time. She joined the school debate team, something Anna would have loved. Her confidence grew, and I saw the fierce determination in her eyes. the same fire that had made Anna so remarkable. One evening, after a victorious debate, she hugged me tightly and said, "Dad, Mom would be so proud." Luca found solace in sports. I started coaching his little soccer team on weekends, which gave us precious time together. Watching him run across the field, carefree and joyful, reminded me that healing was possible. His temper softened, replaced by a quiet strength I had never seen before. Mila, ever the heart of our family, continued to grow into a curious and bright child. She started kindergarten and made friends easily, her laughter filling the house like sunshine. Watching her reminded me daily of the resilience of life. As for me, I sought balance. I realized that taking care of myself was not selfish but necessary. I began to exercise, to eat better, and to make time for quiet moments alone. I returned to hobbies I had abandoned: reading, writing, even painting. Anna had always encouraged creativity, and I felt her spirit guiding me. We also found community. The support group I joined became a lifeline. Sharing my story, listening to others, I realized grief was a universal language, one that connected us all. I made friends who understood the weight of loss and the hope of new beginnings. One afternoon, we visited Anna's favorite park, a small haven of nature with tall trees and a sparkling pond. We brought a picnic and spent hours talking and playing. At one point, Sophia took my hand and said, "Dad, we're okay. We're going to be okay." Those words settled deep in my heart. They were more than reassurance. They were promise. But life wasn't without its challenges. There were days when the pain returned, sharp and sudden. Anniversaries, birthdays, quiet moments when Anna's absence felt unbearable. On those days, I held my children close and reminded them, and myself, that it was okay to feel broken, to miss her. Together, we learned to navigate the complex dance of grief and joy, sorrow and hope. We found strength in each other, in the memories we shared, and in the future we were building. One of the most profound lessons I learned was that love doesn't end with death. It transforms. It becomes the foundation upon which we rebuild our lives. Anna's love was still the glue holding us together, invisible but unbreakable. I also discovered that being a single parent wasn't about doing it all perfectly. It was about showing up day after day with an open heart and a willingness to learn. It was about being honest with my children and myself. It was about embracing vulnerability as a form of strength. Our family wasn't what it once was. It was something new. A family shaped by loss, yes, but also by resilience, love, and hope. We were survivors. We were fighters. We were a team. And as I looked into the eyes of my children, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Because family isn't just about blood or perfect moments. It's about love, fierce, enduring, and unbreakable. Years had passed since Anna's sudden departure, but her presence remained woven into every corner of our lives, a quiet, enduring light. The children had grown in ways I never could have imagined. Sophia was now preparing for college. Luca had found his passion for art, and Mila was blossoming into a thoughtful, compassionate young girl. Through it all, I watched with pride, grateful for the resilience our family had cultivated. The pain never completely faded, it transformed. What was once raw grief became a tender ache, a reminder of the love that shaped us. Some days were harder than others. Anniversaries of Anna's birth and death brought waves of memories that sometimes felt overwhelming. But we faced those days together, with strength born of years of healing. Our family had become more than just the four of us. Friends, neighbors, teachers, and mentors had all become part of our story. The community that once felt distant had wrapped around us, offering support, laughter, and shared moments of joy. I learned that asking for help was not a weakness but a gift, a chance to connect, to grow. In the quiet moments, I often reflected on the journey we had taken, from the dark days of loss and fear to the brighter ones of hope and renewal. I remembered how afraid I had been, afraid I wouldn't be enough, afraid we would fall apart. But we hadn't. We had rebuilt. One day, while clearing out the attic, I found a box of Anna's belongings: letters, photographs, and a small journal she kept during the last years of her life. I read her words, her hopes, her dreams for us. Her handwriting, though faded, was as vibrant as ever. She wrote about her love for us, her faith in our strength, and her wish that we live fully, joyfully. I shared the journal with the kids. Tears filled Sophia's eyes as she read passages that felt like a conversation across time. Luca traced the words with reverence, and Mila clutched the book close like a treasure. That moment reminded me of a truth I had come to understand deeply. Anna's love was not gone. It was alive in our hearts, in our memories, and in the legacy we carried forward. Life continued to bring its challenges, new opportunities, changes, unexpected turns. But we faced them as a family united by love and resilience. I learned to cherish the ordinary moments: Sunday breakfasts, late-night talks, spontaneous adventures. Those moments were the threads that wove our story into a tapestry of hope. As I stood watching the sunset one evening, I felt a profound sense of peace. The future was unknown, full of possibilities and uncertainties, but I was no longer afraid. I knew that together we could weather anything. My children, my heart, had taught me that even in the face of unimaginable loss, life could be beautiful again. That love, in all its forms, was the greatest strength of all. And so, we stepped into the new dawn, carrying Anna's memory like a beacon. Not just surviving, but truly living, with courage, with hope, and with an unbreakable bond that would guide us forever. Our story was one of love lost and found, of pain transformed into purpose, and of a family that refused to be broken. This was our legacy. This was our triumph. This was our life.